on the stand still is the defense witness, probably the most important defense witness, unless Letecia Stauch takes the stand. She said she won't make that decision till after the testimony of Dr. Dorothy Lewis. So let's get you back in for direct examination.
Thank you, may all be seated. Court will recall 20 CR 1358, People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury have the courtroom. When we took our break, we were in the midst of the testimony of Dr. Lewis. That's where we will resume. Mr. Polini?
Yes, Dr. Lewis, did that summary refresh your recollection at all towards what the persona Maria had related to you?
Yes, somewhat.
What did Maria relate to you?
What actually, what is written here is what she said.
Okay. Well, do you recall independently that?
I beg your pardon.
Do you have her? Does that refresh your recollection?
What comes to me as I read this is that the reason that I can't cite chapter and verses, it is wildly psychotic. It is incoherent. It is
non-responsive.
Well,
If you can relate what Maria told you, I think was the question. That's what you need to do.
And no, so let me rephrase that then, Dr. Lewis. If you can't recall the exact specifics of what she said, what can you recall about the way in which she was presenting?
yes, I can't recall the exact specifics because it is disorganized and confused and difficult to remember. But I recall her kind of reassociating all over. And she talks about her grandmother and family shooting things out the window and always needed people to guard funerals. That it had a chaotic quality, and it happened shortly after, as I recall it, shortly after I became aware of her seeming to move into her Maria persona and her more aggressive, more, more scary persona. And then it is just rambling and doesn't make sense and incoherent or psychotic.
Now, in fairness, there were other things that you would have liked to have done in your examination. Could you talk a little bit about those? About as far as like an MRI or an EEG?
Correct.
Why would you like those to have been done?
There were aspects of her memory, her behaviors, her descriptions that are consistent with certain kinds of brain damage. And for example, there are certain things that are so close in terms of dissociation and neurologic impairment and let's say what are called psychomotor seizures, where prior to a confused state or prior to a state where you are aggressive and moving kind of automatically but violently, prior to this, there's often a state of wooziness and dizziness, which, as I recall, she described. And following these kinds of episodes, the individual, and this is with what are called complex partial seizures, but also it can be with dissociation, the person does not have any memory of what occurred. First, there is what is called an aura. Then things happen. Very often they can be aggressive things, they can be repetitive things. And subsequent to that, the person does not remember them or remembers them in a confused fashion. And the reason that I would like very much to have been able to investigate that is, if it were, let's say if we were able to get the electroencephalograms that I would like to have had done, if indeed you saw that at a certain point, what were normal electrical activity changed and the rhythm changed and things were off and were not the way we normally think. And then it ceased. If you could combine that, because that would have been signs of abnormal brain activity. And then it would have been very possible, very likely that during the time at which Maria or an entity of Letecia, whatever it be, that during this time when the child was being stabbed, that her brain was in an altered state, and that there is no way in hell that she could have stopped what she was doing. And the other thing is, she would not remember it. And a classic part of Maria's situation is she doesn't remember what happened. I'm not even convinced she knows she did it. And she certainly can give a variety of what you've called like confabulations, just kind of wild stories where her head just goes in different directions. I think that if you could have documented this, there is treatment for it. Whereas we're in a lot more trouble when we're dealing only with a dissociative identity disorder. That's a very tough one to treat. It takes a certain amount of experience, talent, what have you, and investment for a long period of time. So that it matters if you find out that this is what's going on in the brain and you can target it with something to improve it, you're going to see a difference in her whole behavior.
And it was frustrating to you that I wasn't able to line that up for us, correct?
She on relevance.
Overruled.
It was frustrating that I wasn't able to make the EEG happen for you, correct?
More than frustrating.
And just so that the jury knows, you're not here out of the goodness of your heart. You're being paid for your time.
Not yet, but I hope so.
Okay. You're being paid by the state agency that I work for.
In theory.
In theory, hopefully. And the agreement is to be paid at $300 an hour.
I thought it was $350 an hour.
I'll have to talk to my supervisors about that. But that's a discount from what you would normally charge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Despite not having the EEG or the MRI, in your report, you indicated that Ms. Stauch was one of the most mentally ill people you'd ever come across.
Yes, the most complex.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. The more I study her and the more I remember what happened and go over it, she has such a variety of different signs, symptoms, and behaviors. She has many of the signs, symptoms, behaviors of a dissociative identity disorder. She also, if you follow the material, as you recall, I could not remember it clearly. If you follow the parts that I couldn't remember, they're confused. They make no sense. They are psychotic. They're incomprehensible by an ordinary human being. And if they were to be read aloud to you, you would not make head or tail of them. So that I find this complicated. And it would have helped me if I could have at least eliminated or included a particular central nervous system dysfunction that I could deal with. It's always fun for a doctor to be able to treat and to be able to make something better. And so far, we're not able to do that.
I mean, the defense did the right thing. You get your bad facts out there. Yes, this is an expert we're paying. Kind of funny they hadn't really agreed on the rate, but I think it was a smart way that they handled it, Michael, for the jury to hear. Yeah, we're paying her.
Yeah, put it in front of them, and clearly made the point that it's a discounted rate.
Yes.
So you're not in here just for the money. And we know that's often a problem with public defenders. He's a public defender. You don't have the same money as a private attorney to do these things. So, you know, I'm glad she decided to come in. This is a case that obviously was important to her.
Yeah, and that rate is low, right? Let's just admit that up front for an expert of that caliber. Absolutely, I agree with you. All right, we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to return to Colorado versus Letecia Stauch.
Everyone felt like it was probably foul play.
From missing person to murder victim.
They heard 3 gunshots.
And he says, how do I explain getting rid of a body?
Do you see a gun, blood? They didn't find anything.
There's always 2 sides to the story.
You were the last one he was with.
And a former roommate becomes the prime suspect.
He knew more than what he was saying.
Someone They Knew with Cameron Hall. Tonight, 7/6 Central.
Only on Court TV.
Hello and welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala here with Judge Ashley Wilcott. We're bringing you really incredible coverage today of Colorado versus Letecia Stauch. Remember, she is charged with murder and the death of her 11-year-old stepson, Gannon. And she is claiming insanity at the time of the event, a very brutal murder. And whether that defense carries the day has everything to do with this testimony. Dr. Dorothy Lewis, a clinical psychiatrist, a professor at Yale, testifying about her condition and her 14 hours of interviews and reviewing all the interviews she did with police, all of her clinical background, talking with family members, really did an extensive, thorough look at her life and came up with some conclusions. She was just talking about all the lies she told, something everyone has had a problem with, and kind of explains it that it's not something someone normal would do.
Right.
They're so incredible, so crazy that it's all part of her psychosis. Now, as I take you back in for the end of her direct examination, she gives her opinion as to the mental state of Letecia Stauch at the time of death of Gannon. So let's get back into that.
The time of the death of Gannon.
Yes.
What is your opinion?
Well, I think that she was that assuming that this area is about the time that Gannon was killed.
Yes.
She was psychotic at the time. She was not in touch with reality, and she did not. I don't think she knew the difference between right and wrong. I don't know whether she even knew what she was doing.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lewis.
Cross-examination.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Young.
What's the legal definition of insanity in the state of Colorado, Doctor?
Oh, I believe that you must know the nature of what you have done and that it was wrong, and that also I think that you do add on a bit of the Durham decision, which has to do with if you cannot control your behaviors, such as to comply with the requisites of law. I believe that that is also part of an insanity defense here.
Did you look at the statute regarding insanity for the state of Colorado prior to rendering an opinions in this case?
I did, but I would have to look at it again to look at it. And I've also discussed it with others, which is why I added the Durham decision and the ability to conform your behavior, because to my mind, in many courts where I've testified, that is no longer accepted. But it was my understanding from the attorneys that that is also an aspect of insanity, the inability to conform your behavior to what is required by law.
Is that the aspect that you used in rendering your opinions in this case?
That is only one of the aspects.
Well, tell us the elements. This is what you're here for. You're here to testify that this defendant was saying at the time she committed this crime. I'd like you to explain to the jury now what law you used in rendering that opinion.
Would you permit me to read it, and I will tell you what aspects of it
You're the expert,
concentrated on. By and large, I used the McNaughton definition of whether the person knew the nature of what he or she was doing and that it was wrong. And so that was my, that was my orientation. And then I was pleased to learn from the attorneys that also the inability to conform one's behavior to the requirements of law was also part of the definition in Colorado. The accuracy of that, I don't know, but we have discussed it, and I've said that I was surprised. I was unaware that in the other states, that since the Reagan shooting, I had thought that most of that was not any longer recognized, but I was told by the attorneys that that was one of the other factors that played a role.
As you sit here right now, do you know the legal definition of insanity in the state of Colorado?
If you would show me show me as it is written out, I will tell you whether this is what I used. I can't say it to you verbatim, but the idea has to do with whether you knew the nature of what you were doing and that it was wrong.
Well, clearly you have experience in testifying in criminal cases. You said 100 or 200 times, right?
Right.
And so you know that when you write a report, that report comes to the prosecution, comes to the defense, it goes to the court, correct?
Yes, usually.
And in your report, you want to put what the legal definition of insanity is in the state of Colorado, because that's what you're here for. That's what you're here to testify about, correct?
When you have written a complete report with all of the data that you require to come to that conclusion, and then try to go word by word with the definition.
All right, they are really going after her, they being the state, the prosecution, about what is the legal definition of insanity in Colorado, because that's what you're here to testify about. Michael, a fascinating approach to take by the state. I want to thank Melba Pearson for being with us. And Michael, I'd love to hear, what do you have coming up next?
Well, I'm riveted. I can't wait to see the rest of this cross-examination.